Hello, and welcome to this special primary election debate for Arizona's Congressional District 7. A July 15th special election was called for by the state's governor, Katie Hobbs, after the recent death of Representative Raul Grijalva. This debate is sponsored by Clean Elections, the state's nonpartisan voter education agency. My name is Nohelani Graff.
And I'm Steve Goldstein. We'll be moderating this conversation with Democratic primary candidates, who you'll meet in a moment. It all comes after we heard from the Republican primary candidates in their debate. The way we're sharing these debates is part of an innovative effort to support democracy in Arizona. And thanks to a partnership with the Clean Elections Commission, the Arizona Media Association, Reister, and Arizona Public Media in Tucson, we're working to make sure this debate for this race is the most accessible in Arizona history. That means this debate will air on a long list of local TV stations, radio stations, and digital platforms, including support from local newspapers.
Now, we have tried to keep the rules simple here. Each candidate will have up to 2 minutes to make an opening statement and up to 1 minute for a closing statement. Candidates have drawn straws to determine the order of each of those portions of this debate. Throughout the debate, we will pose questions to each candidate, allow them to answer, and then make sure the other candidates have a chance to respond. Whenever a question is directed to a specific candidate, only that candidate's microphone will be open. All other times, every microphone will be open.
And a special thank you to voters across Arizona who've submitted questions for this debate. No candidates have been given advanced access to any of the questions. And with that, let's introduce our Democratic primary candidates for this debate: Deja Foxx, Adelita Grijalva, Patrick Harris Sr., Daniel Hernandez, Jose Malvido Jr. Daniel Hernandez, you have the first opening statement and you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you to the Arizona Citizens Clean Elections Commission for hosting tonight's very important debate. My name is Daniel Hernandez, and I'm running for Congress because right now we are in a crisis, and what we need most is bold new leadership. I'm the son of a construction worker and a Mexican immigrant. I'm running for Congress to fight for people like my mother, Consuelo Hernandez, who's in the studio watching this debate. Hola, mami. Muchas gracias por estar aquí conmigo. I'm fighting for people like my mom, who is living on Social Security and is a Medicare recipient, who's dealing with cancer. But what we're seeing right now is something that is so tragic. The MAGA Republicans and Donald Trump are fighting and trying to cut taxes for billionaires at the cost of people like my family. My mom, who just had her kidney removed back in the last couple of months, just got the all clear. But if it weren't for Medicare, she wouldn't be able to access the health care that she needs. So my commitment to you is, if I'm lucky enough to be elected to represent you in Congress, is to make sure that I fight each and every single day to fight for people like my mom, like you, to make sure that we're doing everything we can to lower the cost of living, bring down housing prices, to make sure that we protect Medicare, Social Security, and Medicaid. It is not okay that we are funding tax cuts for billionaires on the backs of poor kids, taking SNAP benefits away from people. So my name is Daniel Hernandez. I am a proven leader who knows how to deliver results. As a former legislator, as a former school board president, I know what it's like to fight tough fights and to actually deliver results. As a legislator, I was an award winner. I was a women's healthcare champion in 2019. I also helped pass protections for the victims of sexual assault, increasing funding for our Arizona public schools, passing laws to make sure that we increase gun safety in the state, and making sure that I always stood up for Southern Arizona. So again, my name is Daniel Hernandez, and I'm excited to be here with my colleagues and to have a very important debate about the issues that are impacting those that live in District 7. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Adelita Grijalva, you have 2 minutes for your opening statement.
Thank you. Hola, buenas tardes. My name is Adelita Grijalva. We are in a critical, pivotal crossroads in our nation. We have a president that is using the military against civilians because they're exercising their right to protest. The most dangerous threat to our American democracy is Trump. He is the clear and present danger, and our survival of our democracy is at stake. Just today in Arizona, we saw ICE invade our communities and create fear and chaos. We are living through the consequences of electing a president who has surrounded himself with loyalists to Trump, not to the Constitution. Trump's power is dependent on suppressing those in opposition of him. We are living through unethical, brutal, and inhumane attacks which are based on policies rooted in fear-mongering and scapegoating. I take this time to state unequivocally that I stand with the immigrant community. I stand with all immigrants. We are fighting for our future. the future of our youth, elders, women, LGBTQ, veterans, and our indigenous communities who have all been marginalized and pushed aside. We need leaders willing to call out injustice, take a position and a stand, and risk it all for the benefit of the people. We are facing a big fight, but I am optimistic that not only are we up for the challenge, but this is one that we're going to win. There is a saying in my culture, cuando las raíces son fuertes, no hay por qué temer el viento. When the roots are strong, there is no reason to fear the wind. I am grateful for the coalition of over 50 elected officials, 20 organizations, 10 labor unions that have convalesced and are supporting this campaign. This is personal. The life that I have and the life that many of us have in CD7 are built on the immigrant communities.
Thank you. Patrick Harris, you have 2 minutes for your opening statement, sir.
Hi, I'm Patrick Harris. Senior, you can look me up on Google. I could spend the next 2 minutes talking about me, but I want to talk about 3 things that are more important than me. First, my platform, Cap the Cap. Second, your voice. It matters. And third, policies. Please pay attention. To start with Cap the Cap, please go to capthecap.com and take a look at the 1-page amendment that I wrote. It's available, it takes you a minute to read, and sign the petition. This is what it says. When someone reaches a maximum of $1 billion personal net wealth, that's a lot of money. Anything they make after that, they get 12 months to reinvest into society. Build schools, hospitals, cure cancer, I don't know, fix the roads locally here. Cap the Cap puts trillions of dollars back into the economy. There are 800 billionaires in the US that hoard $6 trillion. This will infuse trillions of dollars back into the economy. If you look at my website, you can scroll down to Grok and it'll show you that it'll put hundreds of dollars extra into your pocket every month. 2, I want to talk about your voice. It does matter in this election. Very few people turn out during a primary election. Republicans, registered Republicans, you're not allowed to vote in a Democratic primary. That doesn't sound very democratic. But there's a workaround. You can go online, change to independent, request a Democratic primary ballot, and cast a vote for who represents you. But it has to be done this week. So tell your friends and family, vote. Third, policy. I've gotten to know all the candidates here on stage. They're all good people. But at the end of this debate, you will see that there's only one person with a platform, with a policy, with written legislation ready to go. I look forward to the debate. Thank you.
Thank you. Deja Foxx, you have 2 minutes for your opening statement.
My name is Deja Foxx, and I'm running to represent us here in Congressional District 7. I'm looking forward to sharing just a little bit more about my story because I know that it is our story. I was raised by a single mom right here in Tucson. We relied on Section 8 to keep a roof over our head, SNAP benefits or food stamps just to put food and dinner on the table, and Medicaid so we could go to the doctors when we needed to. And when I was a teenager, things were rough. I worked at a gas station long nights, I was homeless, and I turned to Planned Parenthood for my care. It's the stories so many of us share, knowing that the people in DC have never lived the policies that they put in place. When I was a teenager, I needed a fighter, so I became one. I organized for better sex education here in Southern Arizona's largest school district and won. I went toe-to-toe with Republicans who attempted to defund Planned Parenthood centers where I got care when I had no money, no parents, and no insurance. I wasn't scared then, and I'm not scared now. When Washington isn't listening, when Republicans believe that they are above consequences and Democrats are all too comfortable, we have to ask the question, who are our electeds accountable to? And I'm not here because I have a legacy last name or corporate donors or billionaires backing me. None of that put me here. It was the 14,000 people that have contributed to our campaign, and I know their stories. They drive DoorDash after work to pitch in 20 bucks. They cash in their change jar when they're hardly making rent. These are people that know that gas is getting more expensive, and so is childcare and rent and groceries. They're people who send us $15 in a note saying, I'm putting 1 hour of my hard work behind your campaign. They are my mandate. You are why I am on this stage, and I promise you, I will be your fighter.
Thank you. And now, Jose Malvido, you have 2 minutes for your opening statement.
Kuali Iwali, buenas noches, good evening to everybody. My name is Jose Malvido. I'm Chicano Menton Autumn, and I'm from Ajo, Arizona. And I want to say hello to my parents who are watching back home. I'm a proud son of a union organizer from the United Steelworkers of America who held the line in the early 80s during the Great Copper Strike of 1983. That strike that lasted for 3 years, where we struggled as families just to keep our way of life. I'm here because I am not happy with the current state of politics. I'm not a politician. I've never ran for office. And frankly, I don't really trust the folks that are here. We hear pretty words from politicians, but don't deliver. At this moment, even though the Republican Party is losing points, so are the Democrats. So we need to make some changes. I know there's a lot of social issues that are happening, and I'll address those later. But to me, one of the biggest issues that's happening is the erosion of the three branches of government. Right now, Trump is consolidating and pulling power from the legislature, the legislative branch, and the judicial branch, and putting it all together in order to become a tyrant. These are strong words, but all you have to do is follow the patterns of what's happening. So I'm here to fight for people. I've been on the front lines with grassroots organizing. I've worked in the medical field for several years. I have experience working with people, helping people get access to food, medical insurance, healthcare, helping people just have a better way of life. I'm a community servant. I've been a community organizer, and I'm here to...
That's 2 minutes, sir, a few seconds.
I'm here to represent the people of District 7.
Thank you all. Ms. Grijalva, I want to go to what you said in your opening statement, specifically about what's going on in Los Angeles right now. There are people who are concerned that President Trump has sent the National Guard in, has sent U.S. Marines in for what some are calling protests and others on the right are calling riots. First of all, obviously you're not enjoying what's going on there. Dip into that a little bit more, but then give us a second answer. What would you actually do about it if you were in Congress? What power would you have to stop it or change it?
Well, thank you for following up. I think it's important that it's not just in LA. That's happening here, Maricopa County. It's happening in our schools. 3 days ago, a mom dropped off her children at a TUSD school for summer school, and ICE was waiting for her at home. What they're doing is they're breaking this idea that there is a process at all. And so when you're calling the National Guard in, when they haven't been asked by the governor or the mayor, what you're doing is you're actually sending them in against protesters that are there expressing their freedom of speech and their right. And so what I would do right away is sign on to the Protect Sensitive Locations Act. I think that's going to be really critical because right now, at this point, Trump and ICE can just go in to any location, churches, schools, there are no protections. So that's going to be critically important. And also making sure that, cities like Nogales, Douglas, Yuma, we have the 3 ports of entry in CD7, protecting our communities and modernizing all of the ports of entry is going to be critically important. But really, let's talk about an actual process for people to go through and get their citizenship. I mean, we have people that have been waiting in this country for over 20 years. The reason why we have officers coming in to our courtrooms is because people are showing up for their court-appointed hearings. I think that is the travesty, is what we're doing is we're splitting up families, we're splitting up communities, and we're causing fear in these policies that are designed to create an environment where people are afraid. And so for those of us that can, we should be the ones showing up and protesting and joining, because so many in our community that are marginalized and silenced can't.
We want to give each of you a chance to respond. Mr. Hernandez, let me give you 1 minute on this one, though. And more specifically about if you were in Congress, and I appreciate the answer, Ms. Grijalva, but I also want to say, if you were in Congress, especially if you're in the minority, how much can you do? It's a little bit different at the community level than at the congressional level.
I think one of the most important things that Congress is not doing is exercising their oversight over the presidency and the executive. It's one of the biggest problems. Right now, we are seeing an executive who's running ramshot over the entire Constitution. He's deciding what is legal and what is not, and no one is holding him accountable. So the first thing is making sure Congress is holding themselves and him accountable. But accountability is an important thing. You know, we just heard a second ago that there's a threat to democracy when people are suppressing those in opposition of them. And yet Ms. Grijalva, when she was on the school board and on the County Board of Supervisors, repeatedly and illegally shut people down. So when we're talking about standing up for folks and making sure that we're allowing protesters to come, we need to make sure that we're holding ourselves accountable. This is the thing. When you are suppressing the vote, when you are suppressing people's ability to speak out when they disagree with you, it's a problem. So we need to make sure that we're holding Trump accountable in the Congress, if elected, make sure that we're doing everything we can to make sure that the money that has been appropriated by Congress is being used, and that we're holding not just ourselves accountable, but the presidency and the executive and all of the branches.
We want to get everyone to answer this, but Ms. Grijalva, do you want 30 seconds to respond to that?
Actually, thank you. It's come up before. First Amendment does not allow for hate speech. And so when you're running a board meeting, you're on a public body, I think it's important to make sure that everyone in that room has the opportunity to be able to feel safe and unafraid. And when we have somebody, the person specifically that he's talking about, was targeting my colleague who is a gay man and was using that as an opportunity to spew hate speech and homophobia, that's not something that I'm willing to accept.
Okay, we want to move back to the topic at hand. Mr. Harris, I want to give you a minute to talk about specifically what's unfolding in LA with bringing in the National Guard troops at the order of the president. That's one issue that how would you handle in Congress? How would you respond? And the other is ICE showing up at places like asylum hearings when people are trying to follow the path. How would you respond to both?
Actually, what we need to think about is why is President Trump doing this? First, I condemn any violence whatsoever in riots. I don't really see much, though. People on the ground are saying it's unnecessary. Deploying the National Guards and Marines, that's a little bit of overreach. That's a little bit of a reaction. We know President Trump is a showman. That's what he does. So why is he showing us this and distracting from what's happening? Think about it for a second. He's pushing the big bankruptcy bill, big beautiful bill, and he wants to push the national media over to California, getting in front of Governor Newsom. That's not okay. What else is he missing? He's missing cap to cap. So while he gives billionaires raises with his big bankruptcy bill, we're sitting here saying cap the billionaires at $1 billion. He doesn't want national media on this. Governor Newsom, you have the national media pointed at this election. I can help. You just have to say something.
And we will get into budget in time when we move into that section. Ms. Foxx, though, I want to give you 2 minutes to talk about what's happening with immigration right now, what we're seeing in LA, and then if that were to happen on, say, the streets of Tucson or up the road in Phoenix, is it appropriate to bring in the National Guard if protesters do, get more, if some of them, if you have some, sideliners getting violent in any way, should it still be up to the governor and how to respond? And then also with ICE and where we are seeing communities speak up more and warn where they're going, should that tactic change with how ICE is responding?
Yeah, what we are seeing in the streets of LA and on our screens is heartbreaking. And it is what authoritarianism looks like. Donald Trump gets deportation orders sent out and judges say no, and he says he doesn't care. Governor Newsom says don't send the troops, and he sends them anyway. Our neighbors get in between masked ICE agents and unmarked vehicles attempting to kidnap our neighbors, our family members, our community. And Donald Trump believes he is above political consequence. He doesn't care what people have to say. This is authoritarianism, and the job of Congress member looks different than it has before. Members of Congress have a right and a responsibility to oversight on agencies like ICE. And it means showing up, doing more than checking the boxes, but being a champion. We have seen members of Congress jostled outside of ICE detention facilities. Donald Trump threatens to arrest his political opponents. And I ask you, do you think politicians and press releases are going to stand between this administration and your neighbors? I wouldn't. I wouldn't trust it. I think we need people who have advocacy experience. When I was a teenager, I got my start protesting outside of child detention facilities here in Tucson. And since launching this campaign, me and my team have joined protesters sign and sign outside of Tucson Medical Center, where ICE immigration officials attempted to separate a mother and her newborn. I agree with Adelita that we have to protect our safe spaces, medical centers, places of worship, schools. These are what make our communities safer. Donald Trump is interested in a spectacle, not your safety. But we need Congress members who are willing to take up the role of advocate, and I've been doing that for the last 10 years. We need people who are willing to risk something, and I am.
Mr. Malvido, I want to get you in on this conversation as well. How do we balance humane treatment of asylum seekers with border security that, as we saw in the general election, a majority of Americans do want?
Well, I'll address your first question about LA, as the other folks did. People were out there protesting because ICE showed up with military vehicles and tactical gear as if they were in war. They showed up not only to Home Depots, they were trying to get into an elementary school. So the people of LA were fed up, and they have every right to protest against what's happening. They have every right to say no to ICE. They have every right to say no to the abuse of picking on the most marginalized people. And let's call it what it is. Stephen Miller, one of Trump's appointees that's in charge of immigration, he wants 3,000 people deported every day. It's racism. Because when Trump mentioned about clearing the streets of LA, he said, we're going to liberate LA from the illegals. How are you going to tell who's illegal, who's not? Most of LA is brown. So it is what it is in that respect. So the other point that I wanted to make is superseding Governor Newsom's role by calling the National Guard. He's trying to use that to use the Insurrection Act, old laws to go against people. And to me, again, this is becoming, he's trying to make the U.S. into a dictatorship. But we need comprehensive immigration reform. Such things as the Dignity Act to begin with, other things as to not detain people without due process. And out of all the folks here, I'm the only one that has ran 3 immigration programs where people get their citizenship in Tucson, Phoenix, and Somerton.
Okay. Mr. Malvido, you helped me segue. My next question was going to be about comprehensive immigration reform. Mr. Hernandez, let me give you 1 minute on this. Senator Gallego introduced an immigration border security reform package that for a lot of folks looked very similar to past plans that other Arizona senators have tried that didn't go anywhere. Let's talk about comprehensive reform. If you were in Congress and if you pushed for that, give me your top 2 or 3 things that would have to be in it.
I think this is such an important question, particularly on this district that's on the border. I grew up and was a school board member in Sunnyside where there were a lot of mixed status families. And I think one of the biggest problems that we've had is people are living in the shadows and they have no resolution. They've been living in limbo, unsure if getting pulled over once means that they're going to be deported and their families are going to be broken apart. So I think the first thing is we need to create a pathway to citizenship, bringing people out of the shadows. We are allowing people to be taken advantage of, particularly migrants who are having their wages stolen because people say, well, they're not here legally, so we can take advantage of them. So we need to bring them out of the shadows, create a pathway to citizenship where for folks who've been here, who have been paying taxes, who've been community members, there are countless individuals who live in Tucson and throughout the 7th District who've been a part of these communities. They're a part of their churches, their schools. They are not new people. We need to make sure we honor the time that they've spent and what they've done to contribute to our communities and make sure that they're no longer living in the limbo that they've been subjected to for the last 40 years, really.
Okay. And Ms. Grijalva, a couple of priorities on comprehensive reform?
Absolutely, ensuring that our DACA students have a pathway, full staffing of our borders. I think that that's really critically important. Right now, we have already authorized, Congress has already authorized modernization and funding for that, and that's all at a standstill right now. And then a process for our community members that are looking, that have H-2A visas. That process is really bogged down, especially in our border communities, Yuma community. That's going to be critically important. I think that what I'm concerned with is the overall general push that is talking solely about safety, and what we're missing is those communities like Nogales and Douglas and Sells that are on the border, that are some of the safest communities that we have in the nation. And I think that that's really important, is for us to talk to the community members there, have hearings there that are bipartisan, so we can discuss what the issues are.
Okay. And Ms. Foxx, what about you? Would you be in favor of comprehensive reform, immigration? What would it look like?
Yeah, I mean, we need to first start by talking about the way Donald Trump governs. He's no policy expert on immigration. He governs by spectacle. He has no interest in safety. He is a showman. And that being said, he is interested in building a wall so folks can take photos in front of it, sending in troops to create videos of chaos in our streets and dehumanize immigrants and protesters. And we need stronger messengers in this party. People who are going to go into social media and new media spaces and counter that misinformation about our friends, family, and neighbors. I want to share a story about the immigrants who took me in when I was 15 while my mom struggled with addiction. 2 Mexican immigrants who only spoke Spanish. Dad was a landscaper. They had nothing extra to give, and they made a place for me in their home. Those are the people that we are fighting on behalf of. Those are the people that we have to stand between. And let's be clear, ICE was formed in 2003. It's an agency younger than me. We will know a time after.
And Mr. Harris, I want to make sure that you get in on this one as well. Since Donald Trump took office, there is less activity at the border. The president of Mexico says that fentanyl trafficking from Mexico into the U.S. has dropped 40% this year. So how would you prioritize limiting the drug trade into Arizona and the rest of the U.S. And balance it with immigration reform, with people?
So I worked on the ALERT Act of 2019, which was to curb the opioid epidemic. It didn't see floor time. Bipartisan support. Built a coalition of fierce healthcare providers coming together. And why didn't it see any time on the floor? Because we were looking at tax reform, making the billionaires richer. Yes, we do need immigration reform, but we need to look at it from a global perspective, at migration, because we're having a global migration issue, and the U.S. is receiving some of that migration. We need to work with other countries to make sure that we can help lift them up through the CCB, a capitated capitalism block. You can go online to YouTube, search my name, Patrick Harris Sr., and pull up a video series that will explain how Cap the Cap actually helps with that. As it relates to immigration reform within the U.S., that's going to cost money. I agree with my colleagues. I'd like to ask Adelita, how would you pay for it?
I'm sorry.
Hiring judges, things like that?
Oh, I think that our what is happening right now with this big, beautiful bill that is horrible is it's a transfer of the greatest transfer of wealth from our most vulnerable populations to our those that have the most. And so really making sure that people pay their fair share.
I agree.
So we do, on that note, we'll transition into money and economy also.
Address the question about the border.
Asking about trafficking, drug trafficking, and how do you think that we balance that? Is that what you're referring
Well,
to?
what everybody else spoke on.
I'll give you 30 seconds, please.
Thank you. I disagree with Adelita on the border. We have a strong border, and one thing that isn't talked about is the abuse of Border Patrol of people on the reservation. They cut down fences, they harass people. In order to build this wall, they destroyed a sacred site called Quitovac, which is where an Altam village is. And so to continue this work to build a wall is reckless, and it's inhumane, and indigenous peoples are losing are on the short end of the stick.
Thank you. Now let's talk about other money and how it relates to people as well. Right now, the Senate is reworking the big, beautiful bill. It will likely get kicked back to the House. Within that has been included cuts to Medicaid, deep cuts. 200,000 people in CD7 rely on it. So Ms. Foxx, because you've talked so much about Medicaid and what it meant to you, I'm going to take this to you first. How do you protect Medicaid if you make it to Congress when you are in the minority? And how would you then, if you can't protect it, how do you help your constituents who lose Medicaid?
Yeah.
1 minute, please.
Thank you for pointing out the statistic, the numbers, but each and every one of those people has a story. They've sat in my living room and shared them with me. A neonatal doctor told me about the tiniest and most vulnerable that she cares for. More than half of babies here in Arizona are born on access. Medicaid, there's nothing pro-family about these policies. I sat with a young woman whose family had to make hard decisions when her mother was diagnosed with cancer on if they would make the bills this month or delay care. She lost her mother due to delayed care. These are the kind of stories that will be all too common in our families and our neighborhoods if we see cuts to Medicaid. And you know, even just this year alone, my mom was diagnosed with skin cancer and got timely treatment, and our family is not in debt because of it. I support Medicare for all. I believe that health care is a human right, and that includes the access to reproductive care, comprehensive care, including abortion, no matter where you live or how much money you make.
Mr. Hernandez, I want to come to you. If you're in Congress, how do you work with, alongside other members of Congress who are looking to make cuts to programs? And are there any non-negotiables for you if you're working on a bill?
For me, this is personal. When I was 17 years old, I was diagnosed with autoimmune disorder called Graves' disease, and I almost died because I didn't have access to health care. My dad was a construction worker, and sometimes we didn't have money. If it hadn't been for me being able to get on the state Medicaid program, the S-CHIP program, I wouldn't be here today. So for me, it's deeply personal to fight for these things. But I think when we're talking about Medicaid, what we lose sight of is all of the people and all of those numbers. The things that are going to happen are going to impact, and they are going to kill people if we don't let them have access to health care. So my commitment as a legislator and as a congressman, if I get elected, is to make sure that the first non-negotiable is no cuts to Medicaid. We're not going to shift the cost of providing this health care to the states, because we know that so many states that have taken advantage of the Affordable Care Act subsidies would say it's too expensive. We're going to cut off this health care to people to balance something else, to give tax cuts for billionaires. So if we have this happen, I would commit to making sure that I stand up and fight like I did at the legislature to expand health care, like I did to the 12,000 kids that we expanded back when I was a legislator.
Ms. Grijalva, 1 minute on this. How would you protect Medicaid specifically?
I believe that government works best for the people when it's not getting dismantled from the inside. And so I think that when we're talking about Medicaid, I think what we're losing sight of is the fact that so many services in our K-12 systems are provided to our young people through Medicaid and Medicare. And I think that when we look at those services like occupational therapy, speech therapy, counseling services, early interventions for our young people, those are happening there. I think we really do focus often on so many other populations, and I don't disagree with some of my colleagues, but I think it's important to note that half of the people that are going to be cut off of Medicaid are children.
And Mr. Harris, I know that you're going to talk about cap the cap, so I want to ask you on that note, because you've talked about it as a means of generating revenue. So my question to you then is, how are you going to get other members of Congress to work with you on that? Because certainly taxing billionaires has been proposed, but getting the GOP on board with that to create funds hasn't gone anywhere. So how will you get people on the other side of the aisle to get on board with that?
So healthcare, my bailiwick. You're only going to give me a minute? Okay, I'm not going to talk cap to cap on this one. I'm going to try this real fast. 5 players, taxpayers, that's all of us. Okay, government, that's who collects our taxes. All right, health insurers, those are the medical and PBM payers. Health providers, these are your doctors, nurses, hospitals, and patients. This is who we're talking about when we're talking CMS, Center of Medicaid and Medicare Services. Who do we want to represent? Taxpayers. Those are the Republicans. We want to get them on board, and we want to take care of the patients. So we introduce a bill. It's MFN, Most Favored Nations. A little technical, I'm running out of time. So anytime a third-party payer, say United Healthcare, negotiates a lower rate, and a lot of private payers do, the government's able to match that lower rate, saving taxpayers money. This reduces the need for the government to pay the insurers. We add a provision to allow for the health insurer or the health providers, hospitals, doctors, etc., to terminate any third-party agreement that invokes MFN. They take care of the patients, and what's left is the PBMs and health and medical.
Wow. Did you end on the middle finger? That was interesting. Was that, Mr. Malvido?
To my old colleagues
1
in
minute
healthcare.
on this topic as well. Medicaid.
Thank you. I would do Medicare for all. And although folks think it might be ineffective, I think key players that we could empower are the FQHCs, the federally qualified clinics. they are the ones in the front lines working with what's called high utilizers, elders. And one of the biggest problems is that 60% of the people in the country have one of three chronic diseases: type 2 diabetes, hypertension, high blood pressure. And these are all preventable diseases. So I think with this comprehensive health for everybody, Medicare for all, we can really use these players to help do this work. And I think one challenge to that is that these clinics, as well as hospitals, have different communication models. So if somebody goes to the emergency room, they can't connect with primary care or things. So we need to have a system for everybody so we can communicate.
Okay, Ms. Foxx, we're gonna try to go down the row here as quickly as we can. It's not fair, 30 seconds.
Okay.
Trump's tariff policy, how would you fight it if you were in Congress?
I mean, to fight it, you have to know what it's like to be on the margins, to know what it feels like to barely make rent this month or have to calculate the cost of your grocery cart. Those are the people who feel Trump's tariffs the most. They are an attack on our small businesses, and we need people who are willing to stand up to Donald Trump. People who have the advocacy experience in this room, have been going toe-to-toe with him for the last decade. It's going to take people who can tell a good story, who know what it's like because we've lived it.
Ms. Grijalva, tariffs?
I will sign a discharge petition on day one to force an overturn of the national emergencies and the tariffs. And I think the other thing we have to do is rein in this executive authority over tariff policy. You know, what is going to happen quickly is that if these tariffs go into effect, we're going straight into a recession faster than we can ever imagine. And so the communities that are hit the hardest are the communities in CD7 because we have all three ports of entry with Mexico.
Okay. Mr. Harris, 30 seconds on tariffs. Just 30 seconds.
Of course, it's going to be cap the cap. But part of cap the cap is to build what's called a CCB, a capitated capitalism bloc, where member nations come together to close tax havens and stop wealth flight, and they share information. That means all the billionaires within the member nations have to reinvest trillions of dollars lifting all those nations up, so we don't need to tariff anyone. But here's the thing about the CCB. You're only allowed to join if you're not at war. President Putin, mir.
Okay, Mr. Hernandez?
The Trump tariffs are going to have a disproportionate impact and negative consequences for District 7, whether it's the fresh produce industry in Santa Cruz County that will lose hundreds of jobs, or the agriculture industry in Yuma that won't be able to bring in the things that they need to make the fertilizer to grow our vegetables. This district is going to be disproportionately impacted by the stupid Trump policies. So as a member of Congress, I would make sure that we point out and protest every single time that we can these cuts that are going to make sure that these tariffs will hurt not just the people on the border, but each and every single Arizona whose prices are going to go up and jobs are going to be lost.
And Mr. Malvido, 30 seconds on tariffs.
So one thing is to organize, to have a response to within Congress to build up the power, political power. One is to restore the corporate tax to 28%. That way the corporations pay their fair share, and allow billionaires to pay more in Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. Right now it's capped. They have a cap of what they pay, so everybody needs to pay their fair share.
Okay, now we want to switch topics again, but give you a little bit more time to talk about it. Something that was brought up by voters in this state and submitted: division within the party and pulling the Democratic base back together after watching what happened in the general election. So Democrats have been struggling with messaging, with unity between progressives, between moderates. Mr. Hernandez, I'll start with you. Should the party be embracing more progressive policies, or should they build trust within the base? 2 minutes.
I think it's not a question about progressive versus moderates. I think it's a real question about what we're going to do to deliver results for the people, not just here in Arizona, but around the country. The biggest problem the Democrats have is a credibility problem. We love to talk and we love to scream and we love to shout. One week we're protesting against Elon Musk at a Tesla dealership. The next week we're talking about Kings. But what we're not doing is focusing on the core issues that everyday voters, the hundreds of doors that I've knocked, the hundreds of phone calls that I've made, the things that I'm hearing about is not just about the dysfunction in the Democratic Party. It's the disappointment in people getting elected year after year and not actually delivering results. And when you're in the minority, you get to blame the Republicans and say, well, I wasn't able to do anything because those people over there wouldn't let me. That's not acceptable. When I was in the legislature, I spent 6 years in the minority with a Republican governor and a Republican House and a Republican Senate. And yet, in spite of being in the minority, was able to deliver results like increasing the Double Up program so that people would have access to fresh vegetables when they went to farmers markets and be able to use their EBT benefits, like making sure that we pass a low-income housing tax credit to make sure that we can build more affordable housing, just like we are in District 7. In Pascua Yaqui, I had the opportunity to tour a new development for seniors and for low-income families. So what the biggest problem that we have as a Democratic Party is we are not talking to people about the things that they care about. We're spending too much time in a circular firing squad instead of actually solving problems for the people when we have the ability to do so. And just being in the minority is not a real excuse, but it's one that's used all the time by my colleagues at the legislature, in Congress. So I think what we need is leaders who are going to be bold, who are going to propose real solutions and spend less time lecturing voters about what to care about and actually listen to their needs. Lowering cost of living, standing up to make sure that we're protecting Medicare, Social Security, and Medicaid. Because these are the things that voters care about. Not the internal fighting, not the dumb politics. They're not worried about partisanship. They're worried about making sure they have food on the table, a job where they can earn a good living to make sure they provide for their families, and wages and benefits that will protect them.
Thank you. Ms. Foxx, would you prioritize working with the base of leadership within the Democratic Party, or would you focus on alternative efforts to put pressure on the long-standing Democrats that are there to bring more progressive-minded legislation forward? 2 minutes for you.
You know, I would be in the minority in so many ways in Congress. I'm 25 years old. I'd be the youngest member. I'm a member of Gen Z. I'd be the first woman of my generation in Congress. I'm a young person, a young woman of color, working class. Races like these are hard to win for people like me. I mean, they're hard to just even get into, and we need to have a hard conversation in our party about policy. I'm a Democrat and a progressive, and I believe in the progressive legacy of this seat. I share the values with people here in Southern Arizona who know that our policy should work for working families, like the one that raised me, like the single mom who worked hard as someone delivering flowers for a florist and cleaning houses, right? That these are the people we stand to lose in our party. Working class folks who have felt locked out of power, who have been left out of our leadership. But you know, we need to have a hard conversation, especially around age in this party. We talked about Trump's budget bill, which would attempt to defund Medicaid, steal healthcare from millions, to line the pockets of billionaires, take food off of the table of our most vulnerable families, moms like mine just trying to get by. And that bill passed by a single vote. We have 3 vacancies in the House, 3 Democrats who have passed away while in office. It's why we're all standing here today, in fact. And it is families like mine that have to live with the consequences of those vacancies. I need you to do the math. 3 vacancies because we failed to have a hard conversation in our party about age, failed to bring in a new generation of leaders, and now it is working class families like mine. They're going to have to live with the consequences of cuts to their health care, food taken off their table. And so, yes, let's have the hard conversation. Let's get progressives in there to do the hard work of advocates to pull our party toward moral clarity, but let's also bring in a new generation.
I'm going to change up on this 1 minute. I'm going to start with Mr. Malvido and then Ms. Grijalva, you're next. This seat in particular has been very protective of the environment in Arizona and the Southwest more generally. How much of a priority would that be for you if you were in Congress, protecting the environment?
I think protecting the environment is very important. I grew up in a small mining town that was known as a Superfund site. It's a asthma cluster and cancer cluster. And I've been working with many organizations, including the Indigenous Environmental Network, to address these issues. But I think I want to address a couple of things. I mean, we need people and we need leadership that are not career politicians. Daniel and Adelita have been doing this for 20-some years. From Progressive Action, Daniel has voted with MAGA Republicans 52 times. Adelita and both Daniel support the genocide in Israel. We need new leadership, and when we're talking about steering the party ahead, we need to have truth, we need to be united, and we need to have a progressive agenda. I'm not for the same politics where people are bought and paid for, corporate Democrats that are bought and paid for, and I'm for progressive action, grassroots organizing, and moving forward
Thank you,
as.
sir. I want to get back to the environment, and I will ask that, but Mr. Hernandez first, 30 seconds on the political question, and then we'll go down the line.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that the idea of corporate money and outside money is being brought in. One of the biggest problems that we have in our democracy is the outside influence of dark money. And yet there's only one person on the stage, Adelita, who's working together with a dark money group funded by out-of-state donors to go after people like me, alleging that I'm taking money under the table. So I think the real problem is we need to get money out of politics. That's why I've spent my entire career trying to fight for campaign finance reform to ensure that we get money out of politics.
Okay, Ms. Grijalva, 30 seconds on that,
Thank
please, and that
you.
environment.
So I find it disappointing that we're talking about career politicians when I was on the school board for 20 years in a volunteer unpaid position. That is frustrating because I think it's important that everyone serve on a school board. I think it's important for us to be advocates for our public education. I have no idea what Mr. Hernandez is referring to as far as dark money. I have no corporate PAC, no oil or fossil fuel money that's coming in. They're all small. The vast majority are very small donors. And Malvido, we have not had a conversation about Israel or Gaza. And so I'm happy to have that conversation, but that's also inaccurate information.
Mr. Harris, 30 seconds on the idea of party unity.
Yeah, I'm going to hit party unity. I'm going to hit money in politics.
Okay.
And I'm going to hit, okay.
Cap the cap. Okay.
Democrats, listen to me. All around the nation, go to YouTube, look up my name, Patrick Harris Sr. You will find a series of 24 videos on Cap to Cap. Each one is only about 2 to 3 minutes long. You can get caught up real fast. Use it. Run on that platform. The legislation is already written. The midterms are around the corner. Watch what happens in this election. I'm running on a zero-budget campaign on purpose.
In the interest of time, we're going to keep this next one quick and kind of go down the line.
I got to address the environment or corporate
So this
money.
question is along the lines of environment, but it's specifically, and I will start right here with you, Oak Flat mining. And we're going to do 30 seconds here. If you are in Congress and it comes to a vote, one, do you vote in favor or against? And two, is it just here in Arizona because it's in Arizona, or is it anywhere, even if they find a site that would satisfy the energy needs of much of the country?
Yeah, you have my commitment that I will always vote in your best interest. And that is because our campaign is funded in 99% of our donors are small dollar donors, people who pitch in less than $200. That's families like ours. We're not taking corporate PAC money, not oil, not gas. You have my commitment that I would be 10 toes down for families like ours and young people like us in our future. And I want to give everyone on this stage, because we will not get a chance to see financial disclosures until voting has already begun, to make a commitment not to take corporate PAC money. Is anyone willing to join me in that commitment? Now you know who everyone on this stage works for.
Ms. Grijalva, I'm going to give you 30 seconds. Oak Flat mining, your father was a big protector of the environment. Do you continue in that vein?
Yes, I do. And I stood with Oak Flat. We'll do it again with the Apache Stronghold. I think, that's why organizations like the Sierra Club and the League of Conservation Voters have endorsed this race. I think what we need to focus on is the health concerns. And when you look at some of the consequences from mining, and especially these royalties that are out of our nation. We have a 1972 mining law that has not been looked at any significantly at all. We need stronger environmental enforcement and mandatory consultation with tribal nations and impacted communities.
Mr. Harris, on mining, if Oak Flat mining moves forward, or if you're there for a vote, if it satisfies the energy needs of more of the country, which is the claim of your opposition, do you still protect communities, or do you vote in favor of it? 30 seconds.
Look, I've got a problem with mining, and let me explain why. My brother served in the U.S. Army. He served his country. Then he served as a police officer. He served his community. Then he worked for the mine until a boulder hit him, and he's disabled for life. He doesn't live here. He lives in Montana. You want to know what a mine can do? Look up the Berkeley Pit in Montana. Toxic water. We live in the desert. Mining can destroy people, families, communities, and the environment.
I have to give each of you very quick on mining.
30 seconds?
In favor, I'm going to give you, if you can keep it tighter, please.
Okay. I don't think it's a choice between either giving people good union jobs or protecting the environment. I agree with Ms. Grijalva. We have to do more to protect our environment. But that's the thing. We can do that because if we don't mine here in Arizona where we are creating good union paying jobs, that's why I've been endorsed by multiple unions, including just today by the Boilermakers, we will have to get those things to modernize our green economy from somewhere else. And if we don't do it here, there are not going to be environmental protections, there's not going to be labor protections, and we need to make sure that we're creating good jobs here, especially with our economy going down.
I understand. Thank you. And Mr. Malvido, I can only give you a yes or no so that we can move to the next step, and I'm sorry for that. Oak Flat, in favor. I believe you've been very vocal.
I support the
on this.
indigenous peoples at Oak Flat. I've done for years.
Yes, thank you. So it is time for our closing statements, and that's why I had to hustle you along, so I apologize for that. Each of you will have 1 minute, though, to wrap up your final thoughts. If you are going over time, we will very politely try to scoot you along and cut you off. So, Mr. Harris, you have the first closing statement. You have 1 minute.
Thank you. So remember what I said at the beginning. There were three things: cap the cap, your voice matters, and I would be the only one here with drafted legislation ready to present. Go to capthecap.com, read it. It takes you just 1 minute. It's drafted. It's ready to present. Please sign the petition because we need to show the rest of Congress that people demanded. 2, your voice matters. Get out and vote. Not many people show up for the primary, so this one matters a lot. 3, policy, I just talked about that. Now, I'm going to show you how to fight the most powerful man in the world. I'm addressing the President of the United States of America. President Trump, you are the first and only multi-billionaire president. Cap the Cap came into existence during your term as president. How you respond to this question will define your legacy. Does your love of money trump your love of country? Answer the question, Mr. President.
Okay. Adelita Grijalva, you have 1 minute for a closing statement.
Thank you so much. I want to thank you, the voters at home, for tuning in and for your time and attention. This is a really critical race. In this race, you have a choice of not just candidates, you have a choice of leadership styles. In me, you have someone that works to build coalitions, that ran a juvenile diversion program for 26 years, that worked to break the school to prison pipeline, work hand in hand with community on the Tucson Unified School District Governing Board, and as a Pima County supervisor. The most important job in your representative is to bring the voices of Southern Arizona to Congress. That is our voice, our collective voice. That is bigger than one single person. I am an unapologetic progressive voice that will stand up and fight back against this administration. It would be an honor and a privilege to serve you and represent this community in Congress, this community that I've called home for my entire life. My name is Adelita Grijalva.
Mr. Malvido, 1 minute.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in tonight. I think that what I said at the beginning stands. We need to preserve this country, the 3 branches of government. And none of the candidates have talked about it. We need to protect the environment. We need to get Medicaid for all. We need to help people who are suffering. It's not only about fighting Trump, it's really moving forward as a Democratic Party. We have to have something to offer. We have to have choices. We have to be strong and diligent and moving forward. Again, I say it again, we need to move career politicians away. We need to get community members. That's why I'm running. I'm not happy with the career politicians continuing to take these seats. I'm here to fight for you. I'm here to serve you, and I ask you for your vote.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Hernandez, 1 minute, sir.
Thank you to the Citizens Clean Election for hosting us tonight. My name is Daniel Hernandez, and I'm running for Congress because we need a bold new leader. I'm 35 years old, and I've had to fight my entire life to stay alive, to fight for gun violence prevention after a mass shooting, then as a legislator, fighting and standing up for Southern Arizona families at the legislature. We need people who know how to deliver results, as I have as a school board president, as a legislator, and as an advocate. It is not enough to just say we're going to fight Trump. We need to make sure that we're fighting to lower costs for everyday Arizona families, that we're protecting Medicare, Social Security, because these are not things that are just good ideas. These are personal. Whether it's standing up to protect Medicare and Social Security for people like my mom, or making sure that we reduce childhood poverty, which is one of the biggest crises here in Arizona. I will be the champion who will stand up to Donald Trump, but actually make sure that we get results for Southern Arizona, because when Daniel does something, he delivers. Please go to danielforarizona.org to learn more about me and my new policy proposals to make sure we never raise taxes on the middle class.
Ms. Foxx, final closings.
My name is Deja Foxx, and I'm proud to stand here today because I was not born on a path to Congress. No legacy last name or billion-dollar donors or corporate PACs, just 14,000 of you who've gotten in our corner, put me on this stage today to give voice to you. I'm asking you for your vote, to send me to Congress, because we deserve more than politicians. We deserve fighters, people who have been going toe-to-toe with this administration. I'm asking you to look around. Do things feel normal? Do you feel like people who have been doing more of the same are going to get us out of this? I don't. And I know these policies impact families like mine. We don't have the most money in this race. We have the most to lose if nothing changes. It's not about who's next in line. It's about who's going to fight for your family.
And with that, we do have to say thank you and good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.